to us by our current council. So we are Livable Raleigh, and we are an all-volunteer group, just a little over a year old. We're a 501c4 nonprofit organization, and our mission statement is, we are neighbors who love our city and who care about the quality of life of every resident. We believe in a healthy, vibrant neighborhoods that will help grow and have a better future. Raleigh has the resources to shine and innovate, and as we grow, we should lead the nation in equitable, sustainable development practices. And that's what we should be doing as a city that we are. We also believe that great neighborhoods make a great city. And so, some of the accomplishments that most recently that we have achieved was the Indie Weekly's Best Of, and we received the Indie Weekly's Best Local Activist Group. So if you got the opportunity to vote in that poll, we are thanking you because you all got us that accomplishment and that accolade. Thank you so much for all of your support that you all have poured out. Thank you. So this is our first in-person community meeting since everything has been shut down by COVID-19. It's taken over everywhere. And we're glad to see people out here and being able to be in person. I know everybody's tired of the Zoom meetings. We've also have done a Zoom meeting that was for this particular issue to hear what people like you all had to say about the issue and what you thought and what you thought our report should be for what was going on with our city council. So the intent of the meetings are to inform you about the issues that impact the quality of life here in Raleigh and get the community's input. So we want to hear from you. You all have a voice, and when you vote, that is your voice, and we want to hear what your voice is. We want to make sure that we are acting in alongside of the community. We don't want to take an action out of what we think is right. We want to be with the community. So if this is the action that you all want to take, we want to be right here alongside of you every step of the way. So this is why we are here, because we want to hear your input, whether you agree, disagree, whether it's likeness or dislikeness. We can all come together as a community and discuss this like, I want to say, you know, that would be a good way to put it, but we have some grown-ups to talk about being kind and don't do that. So we're not going to go there today, okay? So I think that we can come together as a community and discuss this and agree to disagree and have our differences in other ways. So that's what I want to say, because yeah, we're all grown-ups, but we know some of us don't act in the same manner as grown-ups should. And we hope these meetings will give you an honest opportunity to be civically engaged. Know what's going on in your community that directly impacts you. So it gives you an opportunity to help you understand the importance of your voice, and your vote. And while also encouraging you to get out to vote when there are any and all elections. A lot of times we have people that will just go to the general election and just vote for the president. But a lot of times the decisions that he makes takes a while to get and come down the pipeline. But there are people that are here that are local, like the city councilors, the district attorney, other people that have powers that govern right here where you are. And when you walk out of your door every day, every decision that they make affects you crossing that threshold. And so that's what we want to empower people to understand, that every election matters and has just as much importance. So we want to make sure that you all are fully informed and can make those decisions. And when you have those long ballots, you know, how they start out with the president and then it dwindles down to those other offices that you aren't real familiar with, that you'll still go through that process, because as you go down the ballot, you see those people that are directly impacting you as you cross the threshold. So we want to make sure that you are informed enough to make those decisions, and that's part of our goal. And so, as we hear for the City of Raleigh's mayoral recall, we want to make sure that you all know what has happened. And so, we talked about the Raleigh City Council, and they asked the state to move the city election from October 2021 to November 2022, and add more than a year to their terms in office. And in addition to that, also changing the election process to favor the plurality vote. And the mayor and council made the decision in secret, with no public notice, no public input, and no public vote. And so it's a violation of our open meeting law. And now I'm going to introduce to you Tim Niles from Political Raleigh, who will delve a little deeper. So to give you a better understanding about the city election, how the decisions are made by the mayor and council and the changes of the status of this election, and finally, what we, you, and everybody else in this room that's a registered voter in the city of Raleigh can do about it.
Way back in May, Political Raleigh reported on City Council's power grab to add over a year to their term in office, and we asked you to stay tuned as we explored our options. We've done our homework, and we're ready to do what City Council has refused to do since April: hold a public meeting on this important issue. We're going to share the information we have gathered, and then we will be glad to answer your questions and explore how you can help. First, let me start by explaining how we got here. Next slide, please. The City Council is made up of a mayor, 2 at-large councilors, and 5 district councilors. The current City Council was elected in October of 2019 for a 2-year term. The next election should be this October, 3 short months from now. Next slide, please. But 2020 was a census year. Because of the census, Raleigh has to redraw its district lines to balance them by population. The census data has been delayed and won't arrive until September. There won't be enough time to redraw these lines before an October election, and holding that election with the old districts would be illegal. So the election must be moved. We know the election must be moved, but we have never asked the city to hold an illegal election in October. Next slide, please. There are 2 opportunities for an election in 2022, either during the state primaries in March or the general election in November. The earliest opportunity for citizens to choose their representatives for City Council would be March, and that is what virtually all other impacted municipalities in the state are doing. Next slide. But the Raleigh City Council asked the state to move the election to November, thereby extending their terms in office by over a year and 8 months more than necessary. At the same time, they asked the state to make even more changes that weren't required to deal with the census delay. They asked to make the move to even years permanent and to change to a plurality election, which eliminates the opportunity for runoffs. This means the winner will not have to receive 50% of the vote, and it's generally considered to be favorable to the incumbents. Remember, they did this without ever asking you, the people of Raleigh, what you want. The NNO had this to say about the process: going behind closed doors, debating amongst themselves for an hour, and voting in private to postpone an election is not the kind of process citizens should expect from the City Council of the state capital. Public mistrust of politicians is such that even the appearance of self-dealing and impropriety must be avoided. And the last thing we need is for City Council members to emerge from a figurative smoke-filled room with a decision bearing no public input. In addition to the NNO, the entire Wake County Senate delegation voted against this request from the city because of the complete lack of transparency. And Governor Cooper also spoke out against the council's action because of the secrecy. Recently, the NNO published a piece about this issue. In that piece, one more time, the city gave 2 excuses for not being able to hold the election in March. Neither of these excuses makes any sense, and the media need to challenge them on these. First, they said there is not enough time to draw the districts for March. But had the census data arrived on time in April, they would have drawn the districts and held the election in October. Let's count the months together. Let's have some audience participation. If the data arrived in April as usual, May is 1, June is 2, July is 3, August is 4, September September is 5, and October is 6. 6 months to redraw the districts and hold the election. But the data is going to arrive late. It's going to arrive in September. So let's count again. The census data arrives in September, so October is 1, November is 2, December is 3, January is 4, February is 5, and March is 6. See that? The same 6 months, and we arrive in March, right when the primaries are being held, and virtually every other municipality is having their delayed elections. Raleigh could have too, they just didn't want to. Second, they said they need more time to prepare for the Parks Bond. They were supposed to be prepared for the Parks Bond in October 2021. And Parks Bond has nothing to do with census data. The Parks Bond is also not required to coincide with a municipal election. You may recall we had an affordable housing bond last November in the presidential election. There was no stipulation. Don't fall for their excuses. But wait, now they are feeling the pressure from the public over their backroom deals. They've come up with new excuses. Are any of you on the email list of the counselors? Hands? Anyone get emails from counselors? Just last week, one of the counselors sent out an email with brand new excuses that also don't make any sense at all, other than to blame someone else. The first claim was that the new bill in the legislature, 722, would force the city to redraw the districts in just 3 weeks to hold the election in March. This is not true. The bill clearly states the districts must be drawn by November 17th. Remember the census, we're going to count again. Remember the census data is coming in September. So, we're going to count how many weeks is it from September to November 17th. Even if we start in October 1st to November 17th, it's 6 weeks. Not the 3 weeks that they claim. And there are computer programs that will redraw districts in minutes, not weeks. Even if you're trying to gerrymander them for your own benefit, you can still do it in minutes, not weeks. So, next, this counselor says they expected the legislature to hold a public meeting. Huh? When did it become the responsibility of the state legislature to hold public hearings about a city of Raleigh decision? That makes no sense at all. If the legislature is responsible for the most basic of city services, citizen engagement, why do we need a city council? The legislature is only a couple of blocks away. As the final excuse for not holding a public hearing, she said, oh wait, did I say she? Okay, twist my arm, it was Nicole Stewart. She says the council appointed a study group on council terms, salaries, and voter engagement, and they hold public meetings, and recommended moving elections to even years. Yes, there is a study group. Show of hands, how many of you have ever heard of it? Anyone? Anyone? A few. Okay, great. They meet Wednesday afternoons at noon. Maybe if the council hadn't gotten rid of CACs, more of you would have been aware of the study group. The public can watch their meetings on Zoom, but they have never asked for public input, and they had no understanding that moving the election to November eliminates the possibility of runoffs. They could have suggested a primary in March. If they wanted to go to even years, set a primary in March, winnow it down to 2 candidates for the general election. Then you don't have to worry about the runoff because there's only 2 candidates. Somebody's going to get 50%. But that was the whole point. The council wanted to eliminate runoff because it favors incumbents. Next slide, please. We know that you are probably as frustrated as we are and want to know what your options are. We are trying to hold the election you were entitled to as soon as possible. The solution that is available to us is to call a special election under Raleigh's recall rules. The state doesn't have laws regulating these special elections. The city of Raleigh has its own rules. Our plan is to recall the mayor, and we are here today to launch the petition drive to gather the required signatures to do so. So why just the mayor and not the entire council? They all did this.
That's right.
We consider her to be the architect of this power grab, and also believe, after talking with political professionals, that we would have a better chance of success success by focusing on only one election instead of 8. We also believe that a change in leadership can have the most effect on the way the city is being run and bring focus back on involving citizens in local decisions by bringing those decisions out of the back rooms and into the light. Lastly, if we are successful, the other councilors will continue to carry the stink of this power grab on their records right up to November 2022. And I guarantee you, we won't let anyone forget about their part in all of this. This special election would not automatically remove the mayor from office. It simply sets a new election to fill the remainder of her current term. Because the special election simply completes the current term and the mayor's office is citywide, the census data is not needed and districts don't have to be redrawn. Since the state has moved the election, her current term of office has been extended to November 2022. So the winner of this special election would serve as mayor until November 2022, when a new regular election will be held for the entire council. Next slide. How do we proceed? We petition the city to call for this special election. Next slide. A valid petition contains signatures from Raleigh residents who are registered voters. The number of signatures required is 25% of the number of voters from the 2019 election. Although people who sign do not have to have voted in 2019. We use the vote totals from 2019 simply to calculate the number of signatures required. We need about 14,000 valid signatures to recall the mayor. Next slide, please. Once the petitions are completed, we file them with the city clerk. The clerk has 10 days to validate the signatures. If found insufficient, we have 10 days to make the necessary corrections. Next slide. Once the petitions are validated, the city clerk submits them to the Wake County Board of Elections. The Board of Elections must schedule the election to occur within 60 days of receiving the valid petition. Next slide. The election will have early voting, mail-in voting, and military voting. If no candidate receives over 50% of the vote, a runoff will be scheduled within 20 days for the top 2 finishers. Next slide. To date, we have contacted the city to get information about the format of what a valid petition should look like. They have been completely unwilling to cooperate, saying their role doesn't begin until a formal petition is submitted. They refused to talk with us. They were no more helpful when our lawyer contacted them and refused to talk with him as well. We have made multiple good faith efforts to talk with the city to get them to advise us on the format of a petition and have gotten no results. We even invited the city attorney to speak here today or submit a statement that we could read, but once again, no response. So we will simply have to make our best effort to follow what the city charter says, that the requirements for the petition are, and move forward. Next slide. One last item from me before we get to hearing from you. When we held this meeting online 3 weeks ago, we asked the attendees a couple of poll questions and would like to do the same for you today. Question 1, do you support our plan for a special election under the recall rules? All who agree, raise your hand. Yeah! Anyone who doesn't agree, raise your hands now. So, the next slide, please. Now, question 2, do you think this program has been a good example of productive community engagement? Are we modeling what we'd like to see from City Council? Before we get your answer on this second question, we want to take some questions and comments from you, and then we'll get back to this question and get your opinion. Now it's your turn. We would like to hear your thoughts. Are you going to help us do the necessary work to succeed? Next slide, please. As soon as we are done hearing from you, the petition drive will begin. All who want to sign the petition will have the opportunity right here today. The tables where you signed in today and around the corners here are set up with volunteers to guide you through signing the petition. There will also be in-person signing events over the next few weeks all across the city that we will widely publicize. Volunteers will also be canvassing door to door to collect signatures. Some neighborhoods are already planning signing parties to be followed up by door-to-door canvassing. And we have downloadable petition forms and instructions available on our website, livableraleigh.com, under the Recall News tab, for people who want to canvass for signatures, or if they just want to print off a petition and sign it for themselves. Get it notarized and return it to us. If you don't have access to a notary, just get in touch with us and we will help you. In fact, if anyone here today is a notary and you want to volunteer to help, just let us know and we can put you to work for the cause. Again, go to our website, livableraleigh.com, under the Recall News tab. It will be updated with the latest information and upcoming events regularly. Next slide, please. We also want to collect testimonials. If you know anyone, or if any of you voted for Mary Ann for mayor 2 years ago, and now you're sorry, and you don't want to do it again. If you send us a short statement of a testimonial, we are going to add those testimonials to our website so that everyone can see. You don't have to use your full name, I'll put whatever you want on there. Be first name, last initial, whatever makes you comfortable. And now I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Wanda Hunter to call on you so we can hear what you have to say. However, if you do have to leave early, please be sure to stop by the petition table on your way out and sign the petition. Thank you.
So, thank you all. So Tim has so eloquently laid everything out for us about how this process is going to work. But we are here to have your feedback and to see how everybody feels. And I saw the vote around the room, and it was unanimous, but it wasn't. But we respect everybody's opinion in this space. So you're well respected if you do not agree. So our rules for our housekeeping for questions, because we're not going to ask if anybody has any questions. We're going to ask, what questions do you have? Because we know everybody has questions. And so if it's possible, if you have a question, if you can come and line up here at this table, right here beside Russ Stevenson, who hat on, then we will have a mic that will be there for you. If you have mobility issues, if you'll raise your hand, then we will make an arrangement for you to get a mic so that you can ask your question, so that everybody can get an opportunity for any questions and make sure that they have answers and fully understand what this process is all about and what it means to us as a community. And Wanda Gilbert-Coker will be handling the hot mic over here for any questions that you all may have. So please make your way over to this side of the room. And as I stated before, if you have any mobility issues and you have a question, if you raise your hand, then we will try to get the mic to you so that you can also ask your question. We always want to have an inclusive space that includes everybody.
Okay. First person, you can say your name.
Bob Moxley.
Your question?
The question. Who will determine, once we get the petition, assuming we get the 14,000 names, who will determine that it is legitimate and will count?
That responsibility, according to this, sure. He's asking, once we hand in the petitions, who's responsible for deciding whether the individual signatures are valid? And that role under the city's charter falls to the city clerk. And as I said, she's got 10 days to go through the signatures and validate them. So it's a little editorial comment here. Since it's her job to do that, I don't understand why she couldn't tell us what a valid form looks like, because she's the one to know.
Can I also add that when these signatures are gathered, it'll be her responsibility to validate the signatures. And what that encompasses is she is going to have to be in contact with the State Board of Elections to make sure that these people are registered voters and they are on the roll. So I just want to also take this time out to let you know that if you have an address change, if you're not currently registered to vote, we do have the A. Philip Randolph Institute who is here with voter registration form. We also have North Carolina Asian Americans together here with voter registration form. And I just want to let you all know we also you are not registered to vote, or something else has changed in your voter registration, if you were purged and you don't even know that you were, if you don't even know that you were purged, you can talk to Ms. Erica Moss right here. She has a QR code where you can check to see if your voter registration is still valid, because since the 2020 election, there has been a purge of the rolls in North Carolina. That's the other tactic of voter suppression. So we want to make sure that you cover all of those avenues of making sure that you're still on the roll, that if you have any address or updates to any of your demographic information, that you can do that with voter registration with APRI or North Carolina Asian Americans Together.
Can I just add one thing? We can also check when you sign the petition, you need to sign the same way as your voter registration, and we can look that up, how your, middle initial, middle name, so we can do that too.
Yes, by same way, we don't mean it has to look like your signature. We need, in my case, my voter registration has my full middle name, so when I sign the document, I have to sign my full middle name. If I do a middle initial, I'll throw it out. So make sure, if you, I carry my voter registration card in my wallet, I've always got it. So if you have yours, you can look it up. Otherwise, as Donna says, they can look it up online.
Hello, I'm Paul, and I've only had a couple days to read on this, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But it's my understanding that the census delay is affecting numerous states all over the country. And I can just see the response being, oh, this is a national problem, we're just matching what everyone has to do. Is there any other municipality in the country that is pushing past the March deadline with that context on whether or not Raleigh is doing something extraordinary as opposed to a bunch of other states and cities?
I have no information about other states. In North Carolina, Mount Airy also has to switch to November. So it's Raleigh and Mount Airy. There could be others, I just don't know. The vast majority of them have switched to March. But
Now, Airy switched because they did a local ordinance. Their thing was not put into a state legislative bill. So there was an opportunity to do a local ordinance, and we have had people that have come to city council meetings and have asked the question of like, when are we going to have our election? When is it, and ask the question of like, are we going to push it back? Are we going to still have it? Cary is looking at trying to still have theirs this year. But people have asked the question, and the question has gone ignored until this thing came out about what they tried to put in this bill, Senate Bill 722. And if I have to keep saying the name of this bill, I've said it so much y'all the last month, I'm just like sick of it. But so the other municipalities have gone to the March primary date, and that's when most of their elections are across the state unanimously, and nobody else has pushed back as far as Raleigh has in North Carolina, other than that area.
It would be good marketing to say we're the only city in the country that's trying to push for 8 months.
Right, that we forced it into a state mandated bill through the House of Representatives. Right, exactly. And so the House put it in there, and then they said, well, we didn't know that there was no input. But you asked before you added it to your text change, that you added to a whole bill. And then we know when it went to the Senate, then all the Wake County senators unanimously voted against it. And then the governor, he didn't do anything, he just let it sit past 10 days, it wrote out, and then he rebuked it when he didn't sign for it and it was wrong.
I'm sorry, Takita Jarman.
we don't care to tell us your name, so this isn't city council.
Be kind, Tim, be kind.
Being that we're not able to reach anyone in response to everything we've tried to get a response to, who do we talk to if we can't reach anybody downtown?
We gave
City
up.
council? Do we make our own council now?
That's what we do.
No one who is responsible for validating the petition will tell us what the petition is supposed to look like. I'm smart enough to read. I read the charter. It only states about 3 specific things. Our petition matches those 3 things. So, we've made all the good faith effort we can. They won't respond. I'm assuming, because I'm a negative person in general, but this is catch-22, and they're saying, you guess what it looks like, and when you turn it in, we'll tell you if you guessed right. And of course, we will have guessed wrong.
there any plans for a replacement to the mayor, like a candidate to run to provide a political alternative to the corporate governance we've been seeing?
Okay, so he asked if there are any plans for the candidates to replace the mayor. So the way this works is, if we get enough signatures and a recall election is scheduled, there will be a filing period. The mayor's name will automatically appear on the ballot unless she chooses to not run. And then other candidates can file to run. So we don't know who may or may not file to run. There will be a filing period just like a normal election.
Hey, two questions. A follow-up to that. I think your slide said there were 60 days once the petition is validated, 60 days of the election. How long is the filing period? Because that's...
I don't know. The charter doesn't say anything about that.
Okay, it's just, but it has to be some, obviously, sometime.
Yeah, I would assume at the once the ballot petitions hit the board of election, I'm assuming they would open the filing period as soon as possible and schedule the election. I mean, they've got to be able to schedule early voting and mail-in voting and all of that and get it done within 60 days. So I would imagine the actual election date will be towards the end of that 60-day period.
Right. And then who pays the cost of this election? Do you know how much it is? Because it's an additional
The city of
election.
Raleigh pays the cost.
Do you know how much it is?
I do not know how much it costs. Of course, if they had scheduled the election in March, they wouldn't have to pay for a recall election.
I guess my question is, you contacted them numerous times trying to find out what you have to do and everything, and, they're the ones that will decide if you did it right.
They are.
What happens if they come back and say, oh, well, you didn't do this right, but they don't say how you did it right? I mean, do you really think they're just going to do this? I mean, what happens if they come back and say it's wrong?
Okay, so here's the theory. Yes, they are the referees. We turn the petitions into them. They get to decide if they're right or not. And they wouldn't tell us what was right. So the assumption we're going on with is we win either way. If they decide to just catch 22 us and whatever we do is wrong because they don't want to do this, then they're going to look very bad in the media. When they wouldn't tell us what was right, but when we did it, they told us it was wrong. It won't be a good one.
It was cold. I thought it was a dog's tongue.
Sure, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. She had asked what happens if we turn the forms in and they get invalidated. Because I, can't tell the future to know what the form is supposed to look like when they won't tell them.
Let me follow up on that statement. Presumably, you will take it to court. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we have that option.
You have that option.
That's donation.
Additional question. When you are successful, as I believe you will be successful in demanding this recall, does that supersede then the now state mandated election next year?
No, what will happen is a recall election, he asked if the recall will supersede the election in November, and it does not. It fills the remainder of the current term. So if there's a recall, whoever wins the recall serves until November 2022, when the next regularly scheduled council election happens, and the mayor and all the district council, the whole council will be elected.
Hi, Michelle Grant. I have two questions. The first is the city attorney's interpretation that the decision to change the date for the election was attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that has been subject to another legal interpretation. And my second question is that this city council had created a study committee or some committee to look at changes to the terms of the current council, like from 2 to 4 years. Has there been any follow-up with that?
Okay, I'm going to take the first question from him, which was when the city attorney said there was attorney-client privilege when they had their discussion behind closed doors with no public input and no comment and no public vote. It is true that there were legal liabilities if they tried to hold the election in October of this year without redrawing the districts. They could be sued and there could be lawsuits. So a discussion of the city council with the city attorney in that case is absolutely correctly identified as attorney-client privilege because they're talking about lawsuits. When the discussion continued on to be a discussion of the pros and cons of whether we should move it to March versus November of next year, that's a political strategy conversation, and it is not subject to attorney-client privilege. Her claim that just because she happened to be in the room at the beginning of the meeting, that anything they talk about after that is also covered is not true. She apparently has just recently had a refresher course at the Bill Barr attorney school. Well, the second question was about the study group, and that's what Nicole Stewart was referring to. There is a study group that they put together in January of 2020. They started meeting in December. Eric leads it, and he can probably answer the question better than I. They have met 10 times. I've followed a few of the meetings myself, and they are discussing whether the city council terms should switch from 2 years to 4 years, whether the salaries should be increased, whether as an opportunity to get more people to show up and vote, because in municipal elections in October of an off year, not even November of an off year, but October of an off year, we get all of like 16 or 17%. So they're discussing strategies to try to get more people to come and vote. So yes, Nicole is right when she said that they have made a report to the city council of what they decided to date, and their recommendation to the council was to move to 4-year terms in even year election. I'm not sure if maybe Eric can tell us. I believe they weren't aware when they did that would eliminate runoffs, because in the state of North Carolina, it is not illegal to have a runoff in a fall election. But if you have an election in November, the way our election schedules work, it's impossible to schedule a runoff after a November election. The way you can do it, as I said earlier, is by having a primary. You can have a primary that is partisan or non-partisan anyway in March, so that when you get to the general election, there's only 2 candidates, and you don't have to worry about runoff. Somebody's going to win when there's only 2 candidates.
So you said that it's 60 days after the petition is filed that the special election would be held, which in comparison from now to March, when it normally would have been held, that's a much shorter period of time. So what plans does Livable Raleigh have in terms of reaching out to potential mayoral candidates and also making sure that people know that this election is happening? Like, how are you going to get community engagement? This is a very short turnaround time.
Yeah,
We also have an email specific to that. If you want to send us questions, but we have not had public engagement on it because our view was we were technical group of the community to make recommendations based on our background. So thank you.
right, and so just to add on, it is true that they're a technical group. The point I made earlier was, why is Nicole Stewart claiming that was part of the public engagement? If the public was not engaged at all. So, and the last thing I'll say about the makeup of the council, when you have the way it is now, where there are 5 districts, 2 at large and 1 mayor, our current city council has 4 members who all live in District C. That's right. They have 6 out of the 8 city councils who all live inside the belt line, even though half the people in Raleigh live outside the belt line. So more districts in no at large would be cheaper for people to be able to run for office, and you would get a more diverse set of councils.
This is Meredith. I would just like to say that having
voters can contact any Democrat, Republican, Independent. They just have to be a registered voter in the city of Raleigh. They can't be outside the city. They can't be in the ETJ. They just have to be registered voters and vote in Raleigh municipal elections. And you don't have to be registered when you sign, but your registration has to be processed by the time the city clerk starts out there validating things, because she's going to look them up on the voter registration.
The other question is, it's not a question, it's just a comment. If you have at large, it's more likely that you will not get minority people elected.
How soon will the Chavis party start? And when can I bring the dub?
I am very concerned about municipal elections going to every 4 years, even years, for a variety of reasons. My main reason is that offices down ballot, soil director and judges get much fewer votes. I'm afraid the city council will be caught up in that phenomena. And when we have city elections, we have city forums where candidates are asked to go on the record. With so many offices running, I'm not sure that can happen. And I just wonder if Livable Raleigh has a position on that.
Okay, he's asking about moving to 4-year elections and on even 4-year terms and on even years. I'm going to answer as, I'm going back to Tim Miles again, so I'm going to answer as myself. It is true that if you run your elections in November on even years, you will get a whole lot more voters show up. That doesn't make them knowledgeable about local city elections. It also will make it much harder for a local city election to get any airtime when there's a presidential election or a governorship or a senator or even statewide and federal offices. So there's pros and cons either way. But what it doesn't do certainly to run during all that time is help an individual member want to run for council to be able to do it more cheaply, because it will cost more to get your voice heard. And certainly what I don't want, me personally, is a whole bunch of people showing up to just go down ballot and pick stuff, just because some media outlet said these are the ones you should pick. I'd rather they know. Yeah, I think there are better ways to motivate people to come out to the either election when the focus is solely on municipal. And one of the better ways is to get the media to pay more attention to the local elections than they currently do.
I just want to add to that to say that it is a big concern, because then you look at cities that are nonpartisan elections, and then those elections get filtered into partisan elections, and then the people that are most vulnerable and marginalized get wiped out. And so it's very important to think about that, because just because the number of turnout doesn't necessarily mean that the down ballot fall off does not increase. And the data shows that, like the last, I want to say 6 to 8 years, the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center always does an assessment of down ballot fall off on midterm and general election years. And in their data, it shows that in those years, a lot of times the down ballot fall off increases, even though the voter turnout has increased. So it doesn't mean that those water conservationists and the judges and things of that nature get more votes because there was a higher voter turnout. Those a lot of times are the ones that are overlooked. So that is a very important issue, and I concur with you that we have to think about that. And in eastern North Carolina, in the eastern counties, it's a concern for them because of March of 2022. And a lot of them in their local municipal elections or countywide elections are nonpartisan. And so now those elections are voting into partisan elections. And then once these elections happen, those people in those eastern counties like Black and people of color are left out because the representation that has been elected does not look like them. And so it's very important when we think about it, and I try to think about it not only in just Raleigh, but across the state of other marginalized people and vulnerable people when we talk about changing elections for numerous municipalities.
Before the next question, I was asked to make an announcement. Some people have to start to leave. Before you leave, make sure you stop by one of the tables and sign the petition.
I just am asking you to clarify. I'm asking to clarify on the plurality issue. Is that just for this one election that it was changed? And the city council has the ability to change how many votes they need to get elected?
Okay, she's asking about the plurality change. When the city council requested that they change the election permanently to even years, which means permanently to November, every election going forward will be a plurality election. The only way to change it would be for a future council to ask the state legislature to change it back. Because the city can't do that on their own. They had to ask the state to move it for them. And if they want to move it back, they would have to ask the state. Although I believe the city has the power, and maybe Eric will remember, the city has the power to change some forms of their election, like they can change the number of years of terms. I think the city can also maybe change to plurality. I mean, from a plurality in November, I think they could change it to a non-partisan primary election so that they would go to a March primary with a fall general election. Not much.
And I just want to say there are some open seats, like 2 up here and a couple, some people want to sit. Just want to let people know.
Hi. I just wanted to ask one question. I'm enjoying this. I do want to ask one question, and that is, when you are getting your information out, are you mobilizing churches? Because you know that is where you are going to get your 14K. So I just wanted, and my church, I'm going to go plug for my church, St. Ambrose Episcopal Church is very active. I'm sure you guys know that our rector is actively engaged in One Way and the whole downtown south development, because it will have a huge impact on the Billboard Hills, Rochester Heights community. So I'm just asking if you guys are mobilizing churches.
We have had, she's asking about mobilizing churches. Livable Raleigh has had conversations with One Way. If you would like to, we would love for you to contact your One Way leadership and ask them to get involved with this petition drive.
That's Reverend Jamonde Taylor.
Yeah.
Reverend Jamonde Taylor.
Hey, what is it? Okay, so you said they started campaigning today, this afternoon, but I'm not running for mayor, but I am putting my full support behind Terrence Ruth, I just know that, we can get those signatures. I told Wanda, I was like, we can get those within a week. On top of churches, messages, actually Eid is on Tuesday, and there's about like 10,000 people that come through that, so I need to talk to you about that. And I'm just excited to be part of this historical moment, and also I'm the founder of YAP, and we're going to be working on this, so if you're interested and you're a Gen Zer, come back.
Thank you very much. And when you use the word historic, I forgot to mention something earlier. Marianne Baldwin is Raleigh's 62nd mayor, and the first one in history to ever face a recall.
So I just want to thank Zainab for being here and Young American Protest. I see her crew is here. And so when I say that we have a diverse group of people. These are young people that are out here ready to hit the pavement and are politically engaged and civically engaged. And we are glad to have them here because this thing has to happen on an intergenerational level. And that's what we're about to put into place, because by taking this initiative to the next level, it lets them understand the power that they hold and prepare them for when they get ready to take seats in these offices and what good government looks like. So giving them the opportunity to be an active part of this is more, I'm just so excited for the young people that are ready to be engaged. Of course, I'm going to have to go to some young people events. I'm going to start taking my vitamins, y'all. I sleep off every day. So I can keep up with the young people. I have a teenager, but they will run you down. So but I'm trying my best to keep up with them and try to give y'all updates and everything. But the young people are out here, and I'm so proud of them. And I just want to give a hand clap to the young people. Thank y'all so much. Because really, y'all could be anywhere else doing anything, but you are sitting here in your city and ready to make change for your city. And you are today, not just today, but the future. And you're here in this place to take action to make change for today and the future for yourselves and your future families.
We're going to follow up, and I completely forgot, with question number 2. So, with a vote by raising your hands, do you all feel today was a good representation of how to engage with citizens? Yeah. Okay, and anybody who doesn't believe that it was a good opportunity to engage, raise your hand then. All right, that sounds like 100%. Thank you very much. And everybody make sure you sign the petition. Oh, is there somebody?